Hello. And welcome to another episode of Have You Seen?
Oh, yeah, with Nick.
And I'm Lance.
All right.
So this week, it was my turn to ask Nick to watch a movie. And the movie we picked was...
Arrival?
Yes.
I don't know why you had me watch a Charlie Sheen movie, like, from 96. That's very strange. The Arrival with Charlie Sheen?
Tell me that's not the one you watched.
It's not.
Okay, thank God. I was about to say, I have not seen that movie. I do not know what to talk about right now.
It's because there's Arrival from, ironically, it's 20 years later. Arrival from 2016 and The Arrival from 1996. And I looked, 'cause I went to Amazon to like get it, but you have to pay for it on Amazon. So I'm like, I'll just rent it on YouTube. So I Googled Arrival on YouTube, and it's like Arrival and The Arrival, and it's free. So I'm like, oh, look, I could watch the Charlie Sheen one.
I'm pretty sure I said The Arrival by accident. I'm glad you knew what I was talking about.
I knew what you're talking about.
Okay.
Because it's not going to be the Charlie Sheen Arrival. Although I did watch that one today, just because I remembered that movie and like their knees bending backwards, and like it was it came out around the time of Independence Day.
Okay.
Which I think stole the thunder of the aliens are coming here to terraform our planet movie.
Okay.
So that one just kind of got like shelled, and people were like, whatever. Will Smith in an alien movie.
Aren't they like making factories to like put the whatever it is in the air?
They're causing global warming so that they can terraform it because they like it.
I do remember watching.
Remember their like knees would bend backwards, and then they just like jump up into the air and stuff like that.
It's vaguely.
Yeah, that's what I remembered. What I remembered from it was he was a rogue satellite technician, which he was he was a SETI guy that watched like watched the star like that signals coming in.
Right.
And for some reason those stations were manned constantly with two people. I'm like, okay. And then he went to his boss and like, man, I got this thing and it's this signal. And it's like, man, you're crazy.
Okay.
Always coming here with signals. I'm like, yeah, the rogue satellite technician. And then like,
all right, follow me on this one. I've got an action movie that I want to pitch to you. So he's a rogue satellite. I'm going to stop you right there.
I'm in.
I'm going to stop you right there. A rogue satellite technician, and we're going to get Charlie Sheen to play him. I'm listening. Jesus. All right.
So I thought I'd play that little joke on you at least a little bit.
No, that was a good one. I was almost like, hit the stop button. We need to start this one again.
Uh-oh.
I hope you feel like watching a movie tonight if we're doing a recording.
So I rented Arrival and watched that one. And so it's a movie about the arrival of aliens on the planet. 12 ships show up and don't really say anything, and then they end up showing up to this our main character. What's her name? Louise?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's Amy Adams playing the character.
Yeah.
And I think her name is Louise. And this is
Louise
not...
Banks, maybe?
Yeah, something like that. Well, this is not spoiler territory, but it's got Jeremy Renner.
Is Ian, I think was his character's name.
Yeah. And then you got have her, and then it's got like a whole cast of characters. It's got a lot of... it's that fucking guy when you see like certain
Forrest
people.
Whitaker.
Yeah. It's got... God, what's his name in Star Wars?
Oh, I don't remember his name.
I don't remember it either. But
It'll come to me later.
yeah.
But when he was playing in Rogue One.
Yes, I can't remember his name right now, but it's like his... Oh, God, it's on the tip of my tongue, and I'm just going to blurt it out at the end of this
Yeah,
video.
it's once we stop thinking about it, it'll come to us. So if later in the recording you're like, you just hear a random name, we'll put it in context.
Yeah, just ignore us if we don't address it. But so yeah, it's about the 12 ships. They come down to Earth. They set up all over the planet, and they don't say a word. And the ships look like gigantic lima beans.
Yeah, they're like vertical, and they're just kind of like concave and convex.
Yeah.
So they're kind of like those, like those little stones that we would use for counters in Magic the Gathering and stuff like that.
Yeah, bloodstones.
Yeah, they would look like that, but they're floating upright.
Yeah, okay, that's pretty apt.
And all black and like completely smooth, no windows, nothing. So they're very kind of off-putting. I would think.
Yeah, and then basically we'll go into more when we go into our spoiler review.
That's kind of the premise of it. Is you've got Louise, the translator, who's like Forrest Whitaker shows up and being like, you're still under background, like the background clearance.
Saul Guerrera.
That's it, Saul Guerrera.
Sorry, please go on.
I told you, once you stop thinking about it, we'll come to you. So Forrest Whitaker shows up saying like, you still got clearance. We've got like these weird translations we need you to make. And she's like, well, I can't. Like, I could translate Farsi because like when you guys showed me Farsi, I know how to speak the language. Like this one is nothing. Like I need to see them. So it's like I'm like, well, okay. Essentially, let's go. Well, we're gonna show you.
Well, first it was you don't have clearance,
Yeah, that seems
and it's all need to know. So we're gonna go with the second guy.
And we're gonna go to the second guy and like ask him for whatever translation.
Ask him to translate this.
So essentially, she ends up getting picked up just to kind of go there and be the translator for aliens, and that's kind of the premise of the movie is following Louise figuring out how to communicate with these aliens.
And there's some more going on in the foreground, but we're not going to talk about it until we get into the spoiler part. So, Nick, what did you think of The Arrival?
So last week, kind of like last time we when you brought this up, I'm like, I expect to go into this movie. I had like expectations for this movie to be about a 7. And it's about a 7.
Okay.
So I was thinking of bumping it up to an 8, but really, I don't think I'm ever going to watch it again.
Really?
Maybe in like 10, 20 years, I might get the hint in my head to be like, man, I just want to see this movie again. But I've watched it at this point in time.
Yeah.
Like what the story is in there.
I agree with you. It's kind of a one-trick pony that once they put out that trick, it's kind of like, you're not really going to catch you by surprise. But I do think that a second viewing of the movie would like illuminate some of the other stuff that happens in the beginning.
Maybe.
But I caught on pretty fast before the turn.
Yeah, but I just kind of watched it for a bit, and it was like a little ways on. Then you kind of get the sense that something weird's going on, and then like you pick it up and everything kind of makes sense, and it's just kind of strange, but it's good.
Yeah,
I liked it.
So 7's where you settle in?
I think a 7's about where I settle. I don't think it's quite at an 8.
Honestly, I was hoping that's about where you would land on it because it's definitely better than average.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
It's very compelling storytelling. Jeremy Renner's awesome in it. Amy Adams is good in it. Forrest Whitaker's good in it. It doesn't have a basic bitch storyline. I mean, it's not anything that hasn't been done before, but it's storytelling in a different way that just kind of catches you by surprise. At least it did me.
I'm glad it kind of stuck to kind of what it was about, and it's not like some weird action movie or anything like that. It's just kind of like I don't know what you would classify this as. I mean, it's a sci-fi, but is it like a mystery?
I'd say it's kind of like a thriller, maybe.
Maybe
because there's like drama.
It could be drama.
I mean, it's honestly, it's almost kind of like almost in its own classification because it's like a weird setting with weird tension.
Yeah, maybe it's like a semi-tense sci-fi movie where the tension is kind of like the aliens show up on the planet, so people are just kind of like on edge, ready to like shoot, and like you're always cutting back to like scenes of what's going on in the real world, and it's people looting and just going fucking nuts.
Yeah.
So you've kind of got that built-up tension, which I don't know if thriller is quite the right word, but I mean mystery is its own category of
drama.
I mean, it might be a mystery drama,
sci-fi drama,
mystery movie.
Yeah. I mean, the mystery would definitely work into it with what they were doing,
and drama might fit into it too, just kind of with the story going on.
Well, I gave the movie like a solid 8.
Okay.
Hinging on 9, but we don't do halves here, so I'm not gonna do that. I don't think it's the perfect movie, but I will say that like while watching it, it was just kind of like something would happen and I'd be like, that's interesting. And then I'm like, I bet this is going to happen. And then like the thing happens. And then there was a point of the movie where I was like, oh my God, this is what's happening.
Yeah. And
then when I was right, I was like, holy shit, I'm glad I figured that out before the turn. And then something happens at the end of the movie where you're like, it all makes sense. And I like a movie that the other thing I really appreciate about it is it's not one of those movies that like hold your hand. It's like it's kind of counting on you to be paying attention, and then like you get it or you don't.
So I think most people will get it. I think by the end of the movie, it has given you enough of it that I think it explains itself in just the telling of it, and that it is also, I mean, kind of secular. This movie, it's a nice little circle, and you could probably watch this movie and just flow right into watching the movie again. And I could see someone who watched the movie for the first time and then just, it's like, I'm going to watch it again and just watch it again. But is this a movie you think you're going to revisit?
Probably. I mean, it's definitely, if I ever catch it on TV, I'm probably gonna watch it.
Okay.
Just because I thought the acting was top notch. I thought that the aliens were cool looking. I mean, we might as well just go into spoiler territory?
I was just kind of, so you think if it comes back on TV, you'll watch it, but you might not seek it out again?
Yeah.
Or will it be like, maybe in 5 years, you're going to be like, I'm going to show this to Jack or something like that?
And I think that's where it is. I think that if we're ever in the circumstances where we're sitting around the house and we're talking about like alien movies or something like that, or First Contact movies,
It
or
might just
anything
be
like
one
that.
of those classical alien movies you want to show
Yeah.
up that's more than just blowing stuff up.
Yeah, I've got a buddy over here that's just like, oh, you like this movie, you like this movie. Well, maybe you like this movie. Let's watch it on TV, because that's one of my joys. Are if I see something that I really really like.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things is to show something that I really like to somebody else.
Yeah.
And I like being in the same room with them because I like seeing the joy on their face on certain parts. Mm-hmm. So that's why I almost wish we did this
In person?
Yeah, in person. Like it's fun doing it the way we're doing it because I don't know what you're going to say when you come in, and I think that's part of the appeal for me. But it's also a lot of fun, like when we watch Geisha Assassin and stuff like that, where we're just sitting there and we're completely ripping at a new asshole.
Well, I think this is one of those thinker movies, or like one where you need to pay attention. So I think you watch it where you're not laughing, having a good time with it. And then there are some movies that are meant to. I mean, they're like audience movies or whatever.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to sit in a room by yourself and watch The Room.
Yeah, no.
But you might have a viewing party with The Room and have a bunch of friends come over and get pizza and beer or whatever and go nuts with it or something.
I'd only seen The Room one time. Still,
I've never actually seen it. I have watched the one with the dramatization one of it with
what's his name, Franco?
oh yeah. It's Franco. Something.
James Franco.
James Franco. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, for some reason, I was thinking like Franco and beans or something.
No, I was thinking of Harry Osborn.
Yeah, like cherry pie.
But I was trying to get to his real name.
Yeah, James Franco. That's good. Mm-hmm. I had never had any desire to see The Room, and then Tim and Daniel got tickets to go see one of the.
Like in theaters or whatever.
Yeah.
Like one of those ones where they just kind of everyone's in part all saying things at the same time.
They're doing the audience participation, and I swear to God, that movie I would not have had fun if there was a certain group of guys that were sitting over to our left, and every single time like somebody new would walk up the camera, and they're like, "Who the fuck are you?" And dude, I was dying the entire movie. We were fucking rolling because they knew every beat, and they just made it so much fun.
So I think there are movies that you need to be alone and watch, or just kind of like in a dark theater essentially with like, everyone shut up, I'm gonna watch this movie.
Yeah.
And then there are movies where like, everyone start talking, this movie sucks, like we need to be
We need the audience to rescue this movie, and The Room is definitely one of those. And like Rocky Horror.
Yeah.
Rocky Horror is a movie that I can watch over and over by myself. I love Rocky Horror. I think it's great because I also like to sing a lot of the songs too.
But that seems like one that was designed for, or maybe not designed for, but at least has gotten big off of the participation and like kind of the movies up, but people like come up on the stage and act it out and stuff too when it's going on.
It's not only that, but it's like, I think the other thing with Rocky Horror, because honestly, if you judge Rocky Horror by the content of the movie, it's not a great movie. It's the songs. Like the music is great. You have Meatloaf, you have Tim Curry, you have friggin' Susan Sarandon, but we're talking about something that is not Arrival.
But it's more of like, Arrival is not a participation movie.
No, not at all. We'll talk about Rocky Horror another time.
Whereas I think like Geisha Assassin, that's probably maybe not like a theater party movie, but it's a get your friends together movie.
Definitely.
And because there's not story to it. Sadako versus Kayako, that is probably more fun with a group of people. Maybe not necessarily like talking the entire time, because when it's I think on its own it's good, but it's kind of cheesy, and it knows it's cheesy. So you kind of need to know. It's kind of hard to you need to know what you're getting into before you watch it, which is a little spoilery sometimes, but I think that can put you in the right mood to enjoy something. Like if I had watched Arrival with a bunch of people talking and people yelling out spoilers or whatever, it would have been fucking awful and an awful experience.
Agreed. Well, I think that's the fun of camp, when you have those campy movies. Like Rocky Horror, it's like the Rocky Horror and The Room, just two examples. The movies are so bad that you have to zhuzh it up with audience participation, but it doesn't work for movies like Naked Gun
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, you have to watch Naked Gun because the jokes are there,
And the jokes are always in the background too.
And if you're talking, like, there's always a joke, and if the foreground is serious, the background isn't, and vice versa usually.
Yeah, the joke is always in the background in the Naked Gun movies, and then whenever it comes to the front, then everything in the back stops, and then as soon as everything in the back goes again.
Some of that stuff is just so subtle and so stupid to be like, well, let's change your mind, and he hands him $20. Be like, well, who are you investigating? I really can't tell you. Well,
how about now? All right. Yeah.
I don't know about that. Well, how about this? It's like, okay, well, we're investigating.
What's that smell? It's raw sewage. I love it. All right, settle down, buddy. I love those movies so much. But yeah, I would definitely watch it again. As far as audience participation, I agree with you. It's one of those movies that the storyline is deep enough that if you're not paying attention or if you miss something, then you're going to catch on a lot later. Yeah. But let's just go ahead and say spoilers at this point.
Yeah. So if you've not seen Arrival, I think we both recommend it. It might be one that you watch just the once, so maybe rent it rather than buy it, or find it someplace that you can stream it.
And let us know if it's like, let us know where you caught on in the movie on what's going on, or if it took you by surprise. But
and if you're curious where we caught on in the movie, you can stay tuned and to the spoiler section.
Yeah, and just after this spoiler alert, we will reveal all. So if it is one you want to watch,
and knowing is not half the battle. Knowing ruins.
It completely ruins this movie. So yeah, shoo.
Okay.
Go away.
I'll give you to the count of right about. That should be plenty of time to find your remote and press pause. And
Snape kills Dumbledore.
Oh my god.
Fuck. Do you think there's that one person that hasn't seen the Harry Potter movies or read the books?
See, that's hard because that was a meme. Like, if you were on the internet around that time, like, I had never read a Harry Potter book, but I already knew that information.
Me too. And I don't think I had read any of those at that time either.
And I'd heard other spoilers just through the course. Because at that point in time, when something is a cultural phenomenon like Star Wars, and you learn that, Luke, I am your father, then it's your fault.
Yeah, well, I mean, shit. With Harry Potter, they didn't have enough time, but, like, he was dead all along, and no, I am your father. Even though for some reason everyone remembers that differently.
It's Luke.
Luke, I am your father.
I think we brought it up in this thing before.
We've talked about
it with the Mandela effect or whatever.
Yeah, but yeah, it's one of those. Yeah, so we are in spoiler territory at this point, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So if you're here, welcome.
Yeah, that means you've watched the movie, or just want to hear all of it because you don't care to watch the movie.
And if you came back after watching the movie, for real. You're so committed. I'm proud of you.
Guys, curious what we think about it. So, ultimately, like, the very first shot of this movie seems like backstory. And it turns out it's not really backstory. Because, like, I kind of watch it and, like, I guess we're just not going to see the dad because, like, he seems like not important at all. So it stuck out to me from the first scene that we're not seeing the dad. So that was weird to me. So later on in the movie when, like, it was the one scene where the non-zero sum game or whatever, and she's talking about your dad is a scientist. I'm like, you mean like Ian's a scientist? Is that what you mean? Like, is he your dad? Like, what the fuck's going on here? So it really took me until she went up to the ship and they were talking about, like, in 3,000 years we're going to need humanity's help. So I'm like, oh fuck, are they like doing something to her head? I just figured, like, in being exposed to it, but not necessarily that she was learning the language, despite the fact that they sowed those seeds pretty early on. That, like, learning a language reprograms your brain to new ways of thinking, and learning how to view their circular language. You can kind of see your entire life
right
all at the same time.
So to me, the movie, so I caught on before he was like, you have the weapon, use the weapon. And then everyone starts flipping the fuck out with, like, the weapon. Where I caught on is when the little girl did the picture in the flashbacks.
And it had a canary?
It had the mom and the dad and then the picture of the alien. And she said, this is a movie that I want to write called Mom and Dad Talk to Animals.
So I thought in that one that had a picture of a canary. Because that stuck out to me, too.
It might have been that because they did bring the canary into
and
the
it's
room.
later when she's drawing the aliens, before they reveal it, but she was drawing the aliens as well.
Yeah. But, like, when that happened, and it's like you said, they haven't shown the dad, and then, like, I was kind of like, okay, So this is something that is happening in the beginning of the movie, and then then they come to get her at her apartment, and the way she's acting, it's kind of like, okay, so this all happened in the beginning, when in fact you find out that everything that you're seeing in the beginning happens at the end. So the whole movie was secular. And it was just like basically her life, the portions we got to see, it was all just a big fucking loop.
Yeah, we're seeing her future and her present, and her not really even any of her past for the most part. But we're seeing like it all kind of intermittent throughout, as they just kind of, I don't know, wanted to fill the scenes out to make it. It just kind of makes you feel like when the memory scenes are popping up, like I'm like, are they fucking with her head? Because it kind of seemed like at times like this girl was fictional or something like that.
Yeah.
So that kind of popped up in my head as a plausibility at one point in time too. Like they're inventing this and it's being jammed into her head or something like that.
The way she was acting, it was almost like she was kind of stilted, like a little bit wooden. Like I thought that too, but like the thing that got me was the way they shot the movie was like, okay, she had a relationship and had a husband, and the husband left because they couldn't handle the news. Then the girl dies. And then the mom is like depressed and lonely, and then she gets the job to go translate.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And then they started doing the whole reveal of certain things that the aliens were talking to her about. Like she would have these memories of like her daughter talking to her about those things. And it was kind of like, okay, interesting. So maybe the daughter was like a forward plant by the aliens to basically communicate with her, to give her the hints on wherever it was she needed to go.
Or if maybe she was like a dream that was being implanted. Because there was that one scene when she like wakes up like after having that dream where like the alien is like the heptapod or whatever standing right over her, like right after talking to her daughter.
Yeah.
And it was like Ian was like, "Do you see him in your dreams too?" So I'm like, are they like? Because they're controlling their little inky language somehow. I'm like, so are these guys like psionic or something like that? So, I mean, they're talking to each other. So I don't know, but.
Yeah.
I wonder if they were like implanting their thoughts into her and like invading her dreams or something. But I guess that wasn't really the case.
No, because the girl does the comment at the end where like Renner doesn't understand the language and the girl does. And like she's the only one on the planet that knows it at that point. And like the thing I liked most about the movie, the reason that I really, really dug it was because it was literally kind of holding up a mirror of like the current state of our world, where it's like aliens come down, this is a fucking human crisis.
Yeah,
this is a planet-wide thing that we need to fucking get on page with, and one dude flips the fuck out, and everyone starts falling in behind him,
and it's gonna ruin it for everybody.
And then everyone just all stops communicating, and like that is so fucking human. Because the one thing they kept bringing up was like, what did you figure out today? Well, we know that like these little things off like the language, we think it's this. Okay, these are secrets that we have, and no one else has it. So it's like, what are you racing for? Like, and then as soon as they said the weapon, they're like, oh, we get a weapon, you know,
or it's they're gonna. They're trying to turn us against each other. They're saying to use our weapons. They want us to use our weapons against each other. Yeah. So they're each giving us this little bit of information. So we'll fight over it. These damn aliens. Let's blow them out of the sky.
And see, the thing I saw with that is they said use the weapon. Like the aliens, like, are translating to her, use the weapon that you already have. And I was kind of like, is information the weapon? Like, what exactly were they talking about? Because that seems like what it all came down to. Everyone is so close to keeping their cards so close to their fucking chest that no one wants to play, no one wants to play together. And then you find out at the end of the movie that that's the key to moving forward, because this is something we all need to share. Yeah,
the aliens, like, they came here to unify humanity, because in 3,000 years they'll need us.
And they almost destroyed humanity in the process.
But they needed humanity to go through that process in order to get through.
But the funny part is that, and this is where I think I really love the movie, because if you really think about like the premise of it, it really is a deep thinker. So if that girl's life was in a loop and she figured out the language, which opened her mind up to the nonlinear path of her mind, who else fell into that headspace as well?
Well, I think that's the point, is that
everyone's supposed to get
everyone is going to. And in 3,000 years, that is where humanity will be, is that they all see like their entire lives, and I guess maybe that'll make people treat each other slightly better.
Well, it's like if we all walk a path where we already know what everything, like from birth to death. If we already know what the fucking path is, it's like, does that make your life better or does it make your life worse? You're not a Dr. Manhattan kind of a guy.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess you kind of are. You haven't lived it, but you know it.
But I guess, I mean, also, if that is us coming through it we think linearly. If you have always thought circularly, then what's to think about? Like, that's just how it is. Everyone knows how they're going to die. That's not notable and noteworthy anymore. That's just a thing everyone knows.
But that's I guess that's the part that blows my mind, is it's like, we as humans have to constantly be entertained. We don't like to be bored. You know, we like to have friends and stuff like that. So if you already know everything that's going to happen, how you're going to react to this movie, when things are coming out, you know, if you know every fucking surprise, like, is life worth living at that point?
I don't know that you necessarily know everything. I think you know, like, the key beats, because it's not like when she was viewing things, like, she was seeing bits of her past or whatever.
Well, I think what happened, and this is just the way I saw it, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're fine.
This is the way I saw it. It was like something would happen that would remind her of something that happened with her daughter,
and then she'd like relive
and then
it.
she would relive that little part in her mind, in her dreams. And then something else would happen, and then near the end of the movie, where she's getting really fucking close, and then it's kind of like, how do I stop this?
Yeah.
And then you have the party.
Yeah, like at the UN or whatever.
Yeah, and it's like she's not quite grasping it, but she's seeing things that she doesn't quite understand. And then the dude basically unlocks everything for her.
Yeah, and you can even see, like, she's at that party and she knows she's supposed to be there, but she's confused as to why she's there. She's like, why am I here? Like,
and they're like, you're the person of the hour, and she's like, why am I the person of the hour?
So it's kind of like her present consciousness is in her future consciousness. So I wonder if sometimes when she's living, like, she's just her previous self or her future self at some points.
I don't know. I mean, you would think that,
or does it all, like, once she gets it, like, when she's fully understood it, does it all just kind of blend together? And, like, what we're seeing is a segmented transition from linear to circular thought.
Well, it's like the guy, when he was talking to her, it was like he was playing cat and mouse, almost like he knew.
It's like he knew.
He knew that she was out of her depth at that point, but she said something to him in the past, which he basically relayed back to her in the future. So it's like they gave each other the key. The most unlikely people basically did the handshake that unlocked everything. But it's like, if you really think about it, if you live your life and you could kind of see these parts in the future and you're confused because your current self doesn't know what's going on, but your future self gets that glimmer. It's like when she unlocks it in the past, at that point in her life, when she goes to the party, did she walk in, oh, Reginald, good to see you. Oh, we had such a good time the other night.
And then she's just surpassed
Dinner was divine. And then she goes up the balcony and she's like,
yeah, and then she surpassed self. That's what I was wondering, if occasionally, like, bits of her past self, or like it's a Tuesday for you, but like from 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock, for some reason, your past self is now here, being like, what the hell am I doing here?
Yeah.
And kind of partially knowing what's going on, but then taking that knowledge back to the past. So when you come back into it in the future, you're like, oh, I just had that episode from like 5 years ago. Or is it just kind of like, once you fully, because she was still getting the language, so like when she fully gets it, she's like bending the line into a circle. So maybe, like, once it's fully connected, maybe
the circle is complete,
and she just gets everything. And now she just always is living all of it all at the same time, or whatever.
I mean, do you have to start playing that stuff off? Like, if you're like just sitting in the party, like, your wife misses you, and and then, like, once that happens and, like, it diverts and everything in the future or further along the circle comes to fruition, do you have to play it off at that point? Be like, ha, I was testing y'all. Ha, yeah. I mean, like, it just, that's the part that kind of blew my mind, is it's like, everything that happened with her daughter, it's like, to her, that had to have been a dream because the daughter didn't exist. And you didn't see the husband, but her future self knew who the husband was, but it still was not occurring to her in the past.
It's even like when she met up with Costello, and she said, like, you get that she was confused about all this, because she says, who's the girl? So, like, her present self didn't, it's like, I'm having all these dreams about, like, my daughter, but I've never had a daughter. What's with all this weird stuff?
Yeah. And see, it was little things like that I really appreciated, because if you weren't paying attention, if you would have missed that part, like, none of that would have made any sense later on in the movie. And I do like those movies where it's like the directors, they at least acknowledge that you're smart enough to, like, you're paying attention and you're going along with the story, so I don't have to hold your hand and been like...
That was So we have both seen and both liked Let the Right One In and Let Me In. And Let Me In is okay, but Let the Right One, like the remake, is okay. The one with Chloe Grace Moretz.
Yes.
It's okay, but this is Swedish one that's good because it doesn't tell you what's going on. It just kind of shows you and lets you. It knows that if they show you the picture of this man or whatever, you can put the pieces together to figure out what the story is. You don't need the trend, like the guide coming on screen to be like, and here's the story and what's going on. It's like we can figure that out.
You don't have to have you don't have to have that part where it's like, this is what's going on and this is everything up to this point. Are we all on the same bus together? Then let's move along. They tell a story and you're either there with it and understanding, or you're just at the end of the movie, you're like, what was the deal with this guy? Or what was the deal with this chick? That's one I wish that we could review. As a matter of fact, we just need to go ahead and make some kind of side things where
we just go back and talk about movies.
Yeah, where we just go back and talk about movies to find out if they get better or worse with time.
So something we've discussed, but we've not kind of put out there, is we want to do an old and new, old versus new, where we watch an old movie and then we watch the remake or like the new version of the movie, and then we just kind of compare and contrast and say who's the winner.
Yeah,
and that would be a good contender, as would I think The Thing and The Thing from Beyond and The New Thing.
There's three. Yeah, there's three in that. So,
but one of them's technically a prequel, so we could skip that one, or we could just watch it and compare all of them.
Or you can just watch them in a row. Watch like the
thing,
one from the 50s
Beyond,
or whatever.
Then, yeah. The Thing. I think it's The Thing from Beyond. Is that what it's called?
I think so.
And then John Carpenter's The Thing, and then the prequel one they just called The Thing.
Well, we would have to watch the prequel first.
No, well, release order. Always release order. That's what Star Wars has taught me.
Okay. Well, I thought you were talking about watching them in like the storyline up to this point.
I watch everything in release order, so you don't get jarred by the special effects.
So, because we've said that, I insist that we never do a Fast and Furious movie because we have to watch all of that shit. That's
old versus new. That's not talking about the new one versus the sequel. It's talking about remake versus. It'd be going back and watching stuff that has been remade.
Right. Okay.
So that's an idea we've had, but that's also we know we have to sit down and watch two movies, which I mean we've done a couple times.
I know we're busy, but I mean just if we pick certain flicks,
it'd be ones that we kind of know, or at least have seen one of. So it'd be like next Valentine's Day, let's watch the remake of My Bloody Valentine. Then we can do an impromptu old versus new and compare and contrast.
No, but I know you're going to be like, well, no, I got to go back and watch the old one again because maybe there's stuff I've forgotten.
I'll just watch our review of it.
Oh, and find out how you felt about it.
It's like I didn't like it. Apparently.
No, that works for me. I mean,
so put in the comments if you like that idea, or give us ideas of movies that could be contrasted. Because of our viewership, just one person just be like, yeah. It's one person. We're gonna look at the comments and it's just gonna be yes, and that's it, and we'd be like, good enough.
Yep, but with that one person wants to see it, we're gonna do it.
Yeah.
So
it's because we kind of want to do it too.
Yeah. Well, it's just like when I didn't realize how much I love that movie until you brought it up, and
it's kind of going along with you get to figure out that movie yourself, and that's why I think that's why we like it.
Well, I think the part like while I was watching the movie, honestly, the first viewing, I was just like, I don't know who that person is. I don't understand what's going on. It was only till the part happened where it was like, what happened if I rescind your invitation?
Yeah, knock all
that part. Don't spoil it. But like that, I don't think that's ever been done.
That's good. It's so like if you've not seen Let the Right One In, you should watch that one because consider this review for Arrival a positive review for Let the Right One In.
So I guess we don't have to review it now?
No, well, we'll go back because we need to compare and contrast.
We need to talk about it.
And say like why they're good. But I think one of the reasons why I like movies like that is that because like we could talk about stupid Star Wars shit and just kind of bitch about like things, but we're just kind of talking about stuff that happened. Like this one is we're trying to like piece together a story, and I think that's kind of fun. Is after you're done with a movie, like everyone's standing out in front of the theater or whatever, and you're just kind of having like, oh, what do you think about the movie? And I really like this part. What would you think this meant? And just kind of trying to like everyone put together your own little theories, your own little things that you thought about during the movie.
And everyone's perspectives, I always find, is very interesting.
So what I watched when or what I thought when Cabot or Costello rather said Abbott was in the death process, and then you find out that like their thinking is circular. That means that he came here knowing, like this was. So I'm going to come here. These humans are going to kill me, but my species needs them. So, so that's the thing we're going to do. And he's known that since the day he was hatched.
Yeah, we're not sure. But yeah, that's the fact of my presence in this mission is needed so we can save ourselves and our species 3,000 years down the line.
I wonder if you can see your entire life always, then I think that means you know your place in the world, because you kind of know all the places in which you fit.
I just think that would bring up a lot of problems on the planet, because there are a lot of people like.
I think if it got turned on, yes. I think if we had always thought that way, probably not.
Well, I mean, if you're always connected to I mean, the world would be a much more accepting place.
I would think so.
Because even when you meet somebody, like when I met you for the first time, if I had that way of thinking, I could look forward and find out, well, this dude's worth my time or he's not.
Yeah.
And it would save me a lot of fucking heartache and pain down the road.
I think it would also just be really nice to be in the future and being able to like see your past sometimes. Because I mean, like then people who've, it's not sad when someone dies necessarily, because maybe they're not in your future, but you can always access your past.
Yeah.
And there's not going to be necessarily new memories, but you can experience those old ones constantly as you live your new ones.
Yeah. And like I guess that's actually a good point. I wasn't really thinking about that. It's because their life isn't completely secular. Like it is and it isn't, because it's kind of like you've lived this thing and you know it in the past.
Yeah.
But it's not until it's brought to your, like, she needed to know how to talk to the guy. So it's almost like he was reaching out to her, or the memory was beckoning enough to be like, this is what happened. Because even when she's like, what the fuck do I do? You know, like it's 0 hour, the shit's about to hit the fan, and she still didn't have the answer until he leaned over and gave her the answer. You know, so
which made it, during that scene, I was questioning if whether he had unlocked it at that point in time too, which I guess not, because he walked up and he said like, I can't like imagine to understand how your mind thinks, but here's this. So I wonder how he knew to do that then at that point in time. Like, did she talk to him in the future, like, or in the past, and be like, I need you to come to me at this date and give me this information?
To me, it was kind of like, I'm gonna shoot this ship out of the sky, and then she gets this random call. He gets this random call that says, blah. And then, like, that was the key that unlocked him to the possibility that there was more there, and that opened his mind to, you know, like, unless you know the language and understanding the script was what unlocked that ability for you. And since she was the only person on the planet that could do that at that point, because everybody else needed the computer to tell them what all the different little spikes meant, and she was able to actually read most of it.
Yeah, and able to kind of manipulate their little squid ink.
Right. So if she wanted to be a dick, she could keep a lot of those cards close to her chest, being the only one who could see and know what the circle meant when everyone else has to have the computer. And then eventually people would catch up to her as more and more people understood it. But yeah, I liked the message of the movie where it was like, if we all work together, it could be a better place. And I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff.
Had you looked up, because she says something to him in Mandarin to change his mind, and then they never tell you what the translation is in the movie.
Yeah, they do.
Do they?
Yeah.
Do they? Okay.
She says something like it was about his wife.
Yeah.
Because he leans over and he whispers in the ear, and then like she was like, "What did I say to you?" And he said, "You told me that like my wife, like the last thing my wife said on her deathbed was that she loves me, that she loved me, and like she something."
The only thing that war creates is more widows.
Okay, maybe I didn't get that.
I don't think it was in the movie.
Or maybe he tells her, "You told me the last thing my wife said to me before she dies."
You told me the last thing my wife said before she dies, but it was in Mandarin.
Okay.
And then I like was browsing like IMDb and like watching a couple of videos just to kind of see like, oh, this is a pretty good movie. I want to see what people think about it. They made mention that the Mandarin that she says to him it was something about like, I don't know if that was exactly what it was, but like the only thing war creates is more widows. And that being the last thing his wife says, like right before he's about to go start a war, essentially, is kind of like the thing that like, oh shit, I needed to stop doing this.
Well, it's like, how would she know that? Random person calling me.
Like on his personal cell phone.
Yeah, and I think that was her way of like basically, there's a phenomenon called like group deja vu or something like that, or it's like there's a phenomenon in where like if somebody freaks out about something, it can be kind of spread to other people. It's almost like an infection of the mind that can spread between people. And it's
group psychosis or something.
Yeah, I can't remember what it was, but there was some story about like a family of people where one particular person in the family thought that they were being tracked, and like they were going to be killed by like their neighbor or some shit like that. So like they convinced the family that they needed to pack up and fucking go on the lam. So like the entire family did. Then they all fell into the psychosis of it. And like they were freaking the fuck out, thinking that these people were following them, and like, you know, cars, and people were like looking through their windows and shit like that. And I remember hearing the story. I don't remember it exactly, but like it was one of those ones where like people ended up like getting themselves killed because they freaked out about it. And I almost feel like the weapon in this movie, it was like almost like a mental illness. That like when you learn this thing, it was like this psychic mental illness that spreads like it spreads like a virus. Because I feel like when she said what she said to him, I think, you know, if there are certain things in your life that people say to you that only you know, and if you got a phone call right now and some dude was like, "Hey, the last thing that this person said to you was this," you'd be like, "Who the fuck is this?" It wouldn't get you to stop what you're doing. You just be like, "Okay, who the fuck is this and what's your deal?" But like for him, when she said it, it's like he stopped going to war.
Yeah.
So it's like it's almost like it flipped a switch in his mind.
What's I wonder if maybe like at the point in time in which he talked to her at the UN summit, maybe he had unlocked the language, but then like in the future he does or something like that, and now he knows his past and he can like influence. This fact that he will know in the future influences the way he acts in the past. I don't know.
Well, it's like
it just seemed like he walked up to her knowing that he's like, I have to give this information to her now, and I just don't know exactly what prompted him.
Well, he had like a shit-eating grin on his face,
like
here it is. He had all the cards, like he had the upper hand. And like, because it's like he's being very complimentary, and you're the one who saved the planet.
Yeah,
and all
you called me up on my personal phone number. I'm like, I don't have your personal phone number. Well, here it is.
Yeah, it's like if you know that if you played like I don't know, air hockey with somebody, but you knew you knocked the last one in, you're like, and everyone thinks that you did it, and you're like, oh, you're the guy that won the air hockey game, big hero, you know, like that. Like you had that information that the other person needs, but because he wasn't a language expert and she was, he kind of had to push her in the right direction. But like she was already there, she already understood what was going on, so she was in the area to receive what was needed. And I think that's the best part about the movie, because as I'm sitting here tugging on those threads, I can see narrow points in the movie where it's like, well, that doesn't really work when you actually start picking it apart. But when you think of time being circular. and circular, and that you could fall forward or backwards even though you haven't lived it. And the only thing that I could think of, because like it occurred to me in the middle of it, I was like, oh my god, she's living her life. Like she knows from beginning to from cradle to grave what could possibly happen if she thinks about it.
So I wonder if she only started being able to see once she learned it, or it's kind of like when she learned it, maybe like that means she could have made influences. Like maybe she was thinking like, Dad, should I become a linguist or should I become a botanist? And it's like, you know what, I'm going to be a linguist. And just knowing that like that subtle influence moved her to where she needed to be in life, or if it was just kind of like only at that point in which she learned it does she now live kind of like you had a line, but now you've got a loop at the end of that line. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but if
you learn it in the future, can you like future self influence your past self before you learn the language?
And is it the language itself, or was the language basically like the instruction sheet on how to think?
Well, it was brought up like kind of briefly in that the way you know language influences the way your mind works. So that the fact that this language works in this particular way just kind of makes your brain think differently and interact with, because it's like our brain currently interacts with time linearly just because that's the only way we can understand it. But if we had this new language, then we'd be able to interact with time differently, even though you're not actually traveling through time or anything like that. It's just your past brain and your future brain is still your brain, so your brain can just access stuff that it's going to do or has done.
Right. Yeah, it's one of my favorite bits of the movie was when they were pressuring her for time and they're like pushing her, and they were like, she was like, you can't rush into these things because if we get something wrong, it's bad information that we can't act upon. And then she told the story about the people who went to
the
Australia,
yeah.
and they saw like the Aboriginal people there, and they were just like, "What are those things?"
Yeah, the point to a kangaroo, and like, what's that?
And the person said kangaroo, and they're like, "Oh, it's a kangaroo." And then later on, they found out that kangaroo was Aboriginal for I don't know.
Yeah.
And then the guy was like, "Cool story," and she's like, "It's not true, but it got my point across."
Yeah.
Like I loved that she came up with that off the cuff, and it sounds completely plausible.
Well, I think it's a real myth. It's a thing that is also not true, but is based around that kind of story. So I think it's a known myth that's not how kangaroo was named, but that's the myth of how it was
I
named.
think that's how wallabies were named.
What the hell is that? Wallaby?
Because that sounds more like something you would hear. What is that thing over there? Wallaby?
All right, wallaby.
All right, sure, why not? Which is just tiny kangaroos, as it turns out.
Yeah. Well, different, but it's like saying an ape is a tiny human.
I gotta say, I'm proud of us. We're 45 minutes in, and we have not really gotten off topic.
Well, there's been Let the Right One In and other stuff. We've off topic.
But those were like sideways comparisons.
Yeah.
Like we've actually like we haven't like completely gotten off track, and that's what I'm trying to do to us totally right now, because I feel like if it doesn't at least happen once,
if we don't go off track to something completely like, are we still us?
Yeah, like it's we're going away from our own format. But yeah, no. I think the movie's brilliant. I love deep thinker movies. I like what they did with this particular flick, because it's so rewarding once you understand what's happening. It's the only other thing I could compare it to was like how Inception. So that's not a great movie. It's a good movie, but it's not a great movie.
That's one that I think everyone loved, and I watched once, and I was like,
Well, I like that. I like how it can make you think pretty hard about certain things, like what's his station in life and what's happening, and the top at the end of the movie. I think that generated like a lot of people talking, because we're never going to get another one of those movies. So that's going to be like a director's secret or a writer's secret.
You say that, but in another 10 years, we'll hoping to get a remake.
You
That's going to be worse.
You think?
Yep. Unless Hollywood figures out that people want like new stuff. Like Arrival's like, I guess, an adaptation of a book, but it's not like a remake of an old movie. It's not an old TV show remade. Like, new stuff, please, new stuff. I want new stuff.
Speaking of that, did you know that Resident Alien was a comic book?
I think I'd heard that.
It's in the beginning of the episode, like right when they're doing the pamphlet at the beginning. Okay. I think it says it's like based off a comic book by blah and blah.
Okay.
It's like, that surprised me.
He's watching Resident Alien, which is good. You should watch that one too.
We're gonna review it one day.
We'll have to talk about that one at some point in time. I think it's worth talking about. I think that's one that would be worth watching. I've seen enough of it to know that it's one we should probably talk about, and it's at least related to aliens.
Yeah, true. Yay!
Smart.
Yeah, thank you for making that connection. But we're gonna make that channel, because honestly, I think everything that Alan Tudyk does is really good. Mm-hmm. So we're gonna have to call that channel "A Tale of Two Dicks."
Is that us?
We'll see. It's double entendre kind of thing. It's like his name is Tudyk, and we're also two dicks. Okay. So it's us telling tales of Tudyk.
Okay.
So
but someone not making a channel only talking about Alan Tudyk.
Come on, man. He's got a nice body of work out there, and
he doesn't. He can have a series. He doesn't need a channel dedicated to him.
Okay, well, maybe a series.
Is there anything else in particular that this movie makes you think about? That you want to discuss?
There are other things that popped up, like the interview, some of the stuff that happened between her, the question, some of the conversations she has with her daughter. But honestly, I know we're in spoiler territory, but even if you continued on with this, there are a lot of things that we said that it's going to ruin the movie. But there are some small dialogue in that flick that is just so good, and I don't want to ruin them. And I kind of want to talk about them, but at the same time, I don't, because even if you watched the movie and you didn't understand what was going on, maybe watching this review makes you want to go back and watch it one more time and maybe pay a little bit more attention and get off Facebook and kind of watch it.
Oh, so I just wonder if us just bringing up things to be like, remember that part, that's not super interesting to watch.
Yeah.
Whereas there's the dialogue in the movie's good. Well, the story in the movie's good.
So I'll go ahead and say this one last part. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite things was when the movie's over and you realize tragically that the daughter is in the future. Mm-hmm. And that the husband that's not around is Jeremy Renner. Mm-hmm. And she understands the language and she sees time in a circle now. And she looked at him and said, if you knew something that was going to happen to you and it wasn't good, would you still do it?
Yeah.
And that was her literally alluding to, I know where this is going.
Yeah. Do I still live it?
Yeah. And he was like, yeah.
Yeah, of course I would.
Yeah. But then, like, he still leaves.
Yeah, he does it.
Yeah. So it's
he was lying.
Yeah.
Or he just didn't understand.
Well, it's like, I agree to the contract now, but then it's like all of a sudden you see the devil's bargain.
It'd be like, hey, do you want to be in on the secret? It's like, yeah, I want to know a secret. It's like, our daughter's going to die.
Yeah.
Like, no, I didn't know we were going to have a daughter. It's going to happen.
Well, we really like each other. Do you want to know a secret? Sure. We get married. Oh, I can hit them skins. All right. Sweet. Okay, you want to hear something horrifying about that, though? We're going to have a daughter. Well, that's not so bad. She's going to get cancer and die. Fuck. Yeah. You know what? I can handle that. And then it actually happens. And, like, I can honestly say I get to be one of these fucking people right now. As a parent, I can now say, like, it's before Jackson. Mm-hmm. It used to anger me when people say, you don't understand until you have kids. They used to piss me off because I've had a lot of nieces and I've had a lot of nephews and I love all of them. But it's like, I now realize, like, if my nephew was like walking on a train track and the train was coming and I'm like, oh no, move. And it's kind of like, he had a good life, but like if Jackson was walking on that train track, I would totally jump in the way of the train. I get it now. And, like, that's got to be heartbreaking knowing that you're going to the situation where you don't have kids and it's kind of like, I love you and I want to be with you and I want to build a future with you. Mm-hmm. And I think this is something that I can handle because you're giving me this foreknowledge. And then it happens.
He didn't have that foreknowledge per se because in one of the little things where she's talking about him, she said, Daddy looks at me differently now, mm-hmm. which means she would have already been born. And maybe like one day he would have pressed Louise to be like, why are you always so sad, or why did you do this? And she's like, oh well, remember when we were talking to aliens, I learned the future and I learned that our daughter's going to die or something like that. I mean, so he got clued into that after she already was alive. So I think she was keeping that close to the chest, but for some reason or another ended up cluing him in, knowing that he couldn't handle it and he would eventually leave.
I mean, I got to figure that he was right on her coattails on that thing because he was like right there too. Like, he was working it out and working the patterns out with her. So he had to have gotten the gift, like, top 100 people in the world.
Maybe, but by the point, because the way, it's like, Daddy talks to me differently now. Means that he got clued in after.
It's too painful, and he had to leave.
But meaning, like, when he first started, that wasn't knowledge he did possess. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if he ever did get fully clued in or not.
It would be one thing where it's like, okay, if I made an agreement with you right now, mm-hmm. I will give you $100,000 if once a week I get to tap you in the nutsack with the back of a spoon mm-hmm. for the rest of your life. And you'd be like, $100,000 sounds pretty good.
So keep away from her nuts.
Yeah, but like, like it's like the first 8 or 9 taps with a spoon, you're like, $100,000, no big deal. I'll damp myself off with a couple of these bills or whatever. And then like about the 90th hit, you're like, the fucking left one is really starting to swell up because it's a once a week thing. It's like you buy the ticket to take the ride, but then once you're on it, you're kind of like, I don't know if I can hack this.
How much money?
$100,000.
It's not a lot. How about like 10 million?
How about $1 million?
Okay. Well, at that point in time, I'd be like, okay, cool. And then the next week I'd come in and go, here you go. Tap them whenever you want.
Wait, what?
I don't need them. I don't need them. that's once you get enough money, it's like, here you go, buddy. You can have them whenever you want.
Okay, yeah, that was
loopholed.
That's when I'd stop and look into my future. Oh, I see where I fucked up there. Okay,
that tap is nuts. Okay.
Lance stopped hanging around Nick because he could not handle the fact that he gave him $1 million to have a pair of nuts in a jar. But yeah, I mean, you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. It's you think like, oh, it's not going to be that bad. Let's look for the loophole.
Yeah, well, that's pretty clever, by the way. But
is it?
But like, that's the worst part of the human experience to me. Is like, I think that That's why I like this movie. I think that people as a whole are good. I think we want to be good. And when I say that, I'm not talking like clean your room. You know, I think we want to get along, but the way that the world is and the way that a lot of us have been raised, it's kind of like you have to watch out for yourself and your family before everyone else. Mm-hmm. When in fact, we're all in the struggle together, but it's a resource race.
But humans are tribal. You kind of had to be like back in the day. And now it's very hard to expand the tribe from like community or whatever, or like family, to like take that little tribe that you like and think of nation. Okay, now take that little thing and think of globe, and it's just too much for monkey brains to handle.
I mean, I personally think I could do it. I like most people I'm around. Like I'd like to think I'm a very affable person. I try to work within, you know, like when I'm meeting new people, I try to think of like every new person I meet. It's like, okay, well, probably I could be friends with this person. This is a person I can go and drink a beer with and like talk to about this, that, and the other, until they fuck me over. And I'm like, okay, I'm glad I figured out that that person is not worth my time. But what I have discovered is that as I go on in life, I meet new people. And I have people like, you're part of my tribe, you know, but like there are other people that I meet where I'm like, okay, maybe this is a person that, you know, I can talk to and, you know, have like those, go over to their house and watch a movie and drink a few beers and like, you know, just chill out and relax with. But you find out that they have their tribes too. They have their inner circles. And it's like, once you have people who have established inner circles, it's hard to get in as a good friend. Everyone has friends. We all have like associates and stuff like that, or like, you know, friends. But like you have those friends where like you have that tight knit inner circle, and everyone has those inner circles. And I think that was the overall lesson of this movie, is that we all kind of want to keep ours close and everybody else can go fuck off kind of a thing. And then
We need to get past that.
yeah, we needed to get over that, and we don't hide ourselves from the world anymore. We just kind of put ourselves out there, because once I can sit there and meet you and be like, hi, my name's Lance. Nick, nice to meet you. And then I can like, if I know how to do it, I can look forward and be like, in 5 years, he's going to fucking shoot my left toe off. And I'll be like, you know what, Nick, we had a good run. And then just turn around and immediately walk off, you know? Like when you open yourself up to other people, if that knowledge in the foreground is there, then maybe people would act better, knowing that they can't fuck you over slowly over like a course of however many years.
That kind of goes back to one of the things I mentioned, that like once you've kind of, if you can see your entire life, then you know where you fit into the world, and that might make people feel better.
Yeah.
Or just knowing that like, if you know that like I'm going to try to learn the piano or something like that, and you can kind of see yourself in like 5 years being really good at it. Maybe that's the inspiration you need to keep up with the practice, because you can see how good you're going to be, even if you don't sound great now or whatever. Or like, I'm going to try to go on this diplomatic mission essentially, and I know that it's going to be hard, but in 20 years I can see where it's going to lead. So therefore, my effort's worth it.
So, and this is the last question I'll ask you, and then we'll go ahead and end the video. If there was an Arrival 2, what do you think the storyline would be?
Too long. There needs to be no Arrival 2. It's done.
So, I think if they made an Arrival 2, because of the current state of the world, in the first 5 years of people spreading this knowledge, a lot of motherfuckers used it to go into the future and see a lot of patents and new projects that were being made so they could steal it first, which just caused more animosity and problems, and we basically nuked ourselves, and we got nowhere near that 3,000 year mark where they wanted to talk to us and needed our help.
It's very
Because humans suck.
It's a very pessimistic mission to you. Like, I want people to be good.
I want the world to be good, but like I look at the world as it is now, and I have never seen so much mistrust and misinformation.
It's always there, and it'll still be here for a long time. I think.
But it's like the main event now.
We hear about all of it, and I think that's part of the issue, is that like you can't escape how much we mistrust each other, despite the fact that that's always been the case. And we grew up I grew up in the 80s during the Cold War. Like, mistrust is like massaged in, kneaded into that dough.
But it's like, it's also, as we go along and we trust each other less, it's like we push ourselves further from other people, and then weird shit happens or weird information gets out there that we grab onto because other people believe it. So it's kind of like we're in a community. Mm-hmm. So it's like we do whatever we can to kind of be on that inner circle.
But now we can be in our communities and like silence the people that aren't in our communities. Like you can just block people you don't want to talk to, and now you never have to hear a dissenting opinion, which means you just get to go to your echo chamber and hear about how right you are, and how everyone thinks you're brilliant or whatever, and never have to go through that complicated process of being like, don't tell me I'm wrong. That makes me feel bad.
Yeah.
People don't want to admit, like, it hurts when like someone points out how wrong you are.
Yeah.
Like it can cause like an effect in you to be like, oh, you thought all this was true. That's wrong. You can speak, oh. And people don't want to admit that people on the internet can hurt them by telling them that they're wrong.
And for some reason they think that it's okay to like, I don't know, tear people down because of thoughts and opinions. And like, I never thought we'd get to a point in this world where like words were like lethal to each other. Like words are wind. They're nothing. And if you don't give people who use the words terribly any audience, it's like they fucking go away.
Well, and sometimes it seems like people just want everyone to be done. Like as a human, we're always figuring shit out, getting better. Mm-hmm. And it's like you're not allowed to get better anymore because you weren't supposed to be worse previously. So like if anyone who looks in their past is going to be like, man, that person we used to be is a piece of shit. And if you don't look back in your past and think like, I used to be a piece of shit, then you're not doing any, you're not growing.
That's true.
So you kind of need the ability to go like, oh, I fucked up in the past. And people to be like, we've all fucked up in the past. And as long as it wasn't like I fucked up in the past, I like slung a baby out the window, then there's that angle for forgiveness and getting over it. Let's like, as long as it's not so bad that it's kind of like, to throw this baby. How bad are you really?
15 years later. Nick, what'd you do today? I defenestrated a baby out another window. You've learned nothing, my friend. But by the way, defenestration, it's a word.
It's to throw out or through a window.
Yeah. I did not know that. It's just like the word. I didn't know it. Like I've always heard y'all say like I'll defenestrate you or stuff like that. And then finally it was like that's just a word they made up.
No.
It was like no, it's a literal word that means yeet something out of a window. And
that's why do you think like there was a spell like in D&D 3.5 called defenestrating sphere. It was like a global wind that when it got you, it would just fling you. It was great.
But like the actual word defenestration means to actually throw out of a window, right?
Yeah, because fenestration is like building a window.
Okay, so like it's not defenestration if I throw you out of a door?
No.
Okay.
It's
interesting.
Specifically a window. I don't know, because fenestrate, I don't remember the exact word of it, but essentially means to construct a window. And essentially defenestrating is you're kind of like just putting something out.
Discarding something out of a
window.
Out
a window.
So like barn doors, where they have the top and bottom and like you could open the top but like leave the bottom. If you throw somebody through that, I mean, technically that's a window at that point, right?
I don't know if it's a window because the barn door things above. Are they windows? I don't know.
Leave it down in the comments if you think there's anything to that.
I guess I don't know barns well enough and how technical we want to be.
Neither do I.
Like if I blow a hole in the wall and then throw you through it, it's not a window now. It's just a hole in the wall.
It's just a hole. I don't know. Maybe this is a subject we need to talk more on. But anyways, Nick, would you recommend Arrival to anyone?
I think so, yeah. I think it'll be a movie that if people say, like, I've never seen that movie, I'd be like, oh, it's pretty good, you should watch it. And then kind of not feed them much information about it. So I think if you know what this movie is before you go in ahead of time, you might have less fun with it. I guess it depends on how much you like to solve things on your own. If you're the sort of person where you just want to know and then just kind of see how everything that's being shown to you fits into it, I guess you could have fun if you know it ahead of time.
I feel like if you're running beside it the entire movie until it basically like smacks you in the face and goes, here's what's going on. But if you like having those aha moments where you figure it out just slightly before the movie like spells it out for you literally, if you like having that rush of like adrenaline where you're like, I know what's happening. Because like Tim was sitting in the room the night when I was watching it and I was like making comments to myself like, wait a minute, is she not seeing time in a linear path? Like, is she not seeing it from like as an arrow? And I was like, maybe she's experiencing the future in the past, and that's what's familiar to her about this. And like, I was like, I know what's happening. Like, it clicked for me, and I was like, oh my god, I know what's happening. And then like the next 20 minutes of the movie till they got to that part of what was happening, I was just like, I felt like I was in on something clever. And if you like those kind of movies, I think you'll dig this movie. But
well, also if you've watched this long,
Yeah,
It's too late.
yeah. It's
But
hopefully.
we gave you plenty of warning.
Yeah, no. It passed the spoiler alert. Yeah, you're fucked.
So, watch Arrival,
Yeah.
which brings us to our ending little segment here, which is hey Lance.
Is it Disney?
I think technically
Is it the fucking King of Thieves?
no. Hey Lance, have you seen National Treasure?
Why?
Because it's good.
It's
It's like you with all the times you've trolled me with Nicolas Cage. Turnaround's fair play, buddy. Turnaround is fair play.
no. I haven't
right.
seen National Treasure.
So if I recall correctly, it's streaming on Disney Plus. If you've not seen National Treasure, I mean, it's a national treasure, starring National Treasure Nick Cage. You should watch it. Join us next week when we talk about National Treasure.
National Treasure.
And I think in going back to our discussion of there are some movies you sit in a theater quietly and watch by yourself and kind of absorb, and some you have friends over. I think we'll watch this one together
Okay, that'll make it better.
because I think this was one that you need to have a couple people around to be able to kind of absorb what's going on and have fun with it with other people.
Okay, we'll watch it together if you do one thing.
What's
At a
that?
particularly tense point in the movie, you got to say, "Put the bunny,
Put the bunny down.
put the bunny down,"
Put the bunny down.
in your best horrible Southern accent. Okay, yeah, let's do it.
All right. Join us next week for on Have You Seen?
Yeah, next week.
I have been Nick.
Are you taunting me with Nick? So the Nick Cage movie? Is this just basically your last stab?
He spells his name different. N-I-C. O-L-A-S.
And I've been Lance.
Bye.